Order. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do you want to start it with that? Yeah, but I'm going to do that. Oh, that, sorry, yeah.
All right, so in the spirit of keeping our vision alive,
Yes,
you should have a piece of paper in front of you. And here we go. The Tri-Creek School Corporation of Students, Staff, and Community endeavors to be
a recognized leader for high achievement
and exceptional growth,
innovative and equitable approaches built upon strong community pride,
and provide all students with well-rounded educational experiences and prepare for future success.
Engaged to learn,
equipped to achieve,
empowered to succeed. Cool. So we have 3 new board members tonight, and it's time to get your finger out for that blood oath, just your oath of
be
office.
swore at.
And so we have our superstar, Mrs. Kelly Mikesell, here to, as the notary that will be certified with the Lake County. She's here to swear you in.
I've never done this before, so I'm guessing you stand. And just repeat after me. Please raise your right hand. I, please state your name,
Nathan Clufish,
I, Katie Kimbrell,
Robert Adam,
do solemnly swear
do
solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America
that
I will support the Constitution of the United States of America
and the Constitution of the State of Indiana
and the Constitution of the State of Indiana
and the laws of the United States
and the laws of the United States
and the State of Indiana.
and the State of Indiana.
I will faithfully execute
I will faithfully execute
the duties of the trustee of the Tri-Creek School Corporation,
the duties of the trustee of the Tri-Creek School Corporation,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations. You can ask for any additions or deletions. Thank you, Kelly, for coming in tonight.
Thank you.
That was easy.
Now comes the hard part.
Yeah. All right. Is there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
This is where I would talk. I do have a request to the board to table an item under I, under business operations, items 5 and number 6. They are both issues that I believe that as a board member, I do not have enough information and background information to make a sound decision on this. I have been a person that collects data and has conversations with my colleagues to validate that the decision we make collectively is in the benefit for the kids, the district, the students, the community. And so these 2 issues, again, I have no background on. We have not had, as a board, an opportunity, the 3 new people anyway, to have the opportunity to discuss and see where we're at and the specifics of these 2 items.
Can you confirm your numbers real quick? I, business operations.
And number 5 and number 6, that would be approve the contract with Gibraltar Design for
Okay.
90 million or 95 million. And number 6, approve contract with Skillman. Again, I want
That's
to clearly
6 and
emphasize
7
this is
on
not,
Yeah.
We have 6 and 7.
oh, it's been updated, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I just wanted to make sure. That's
So this is what I'd probably say. How about we leave it on the agenda? You could make a motion to table it, but we could at least have conversation
Okay,
to
I'm
get
fine
the-
with that.
to get the ball rolling on the
Table the
flow of
approval.
information.
Right,
So at least we can go
So at
over it
that
tonight.
time, if you desire,
for number 6.
I mean, you
and
might
number 7.
say, oh, that was fantastic information, I feel confident, or you might say, I would prefer to make a motion and then just let the Robert's Rules of Order
Okay,
proceed.
that sounds good, but correction is item number 6 and number 7 under I, the business operations.
Okay.
All right, so I think if there's nothing else, at this time opens the reorganization of the board. And I will take nominations for board president.
I'd like to nominate Kyle.
I second that.
Any other nominations? All right, so we have a motion and a second to nominate Kyle Mitch for president of the Tri-Creek School Board of Trustees. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, congratulations, Mr. President. You've got the gavel. You can put your title back up, and the meeting
You guys
is
slide it
all yours now.
I'll do that later. Alrighty, thank you. Next up for vice president, do we have any nominations for vice president? I will nominate Deborah.
I'll second that.
Okay. I'm hard of hearing. Alright, I have a nomination and a second. Any other ones? Any other nominations? All in favor of Deborah for vice president?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign? Congratulations, you're vice president. All right, for secretary, is there any nominations?
I'll nominate Katie.
I'll second that.
All right, any other nominations for secretary? All in favor of Katie being the secretary?
Aye.
All opposed? Congratulations, you're the secretary. Ooh.
That would be yours, sir. And this goes down to Mr. Hayden. Corporation treasurer? I can do all these, right?
Yep.
All right, for corporation treasurer,
This would be an appointment that we would like for you to approve. Our recommendation is to appoint Dana Bogathy as the corporation treasurer and Mr. Ed Sopko as the deputy treasurer.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor of Dana Bogathy and what was the other one?
Ed Sopko
Ed Sopko.
as deputy.
Being the treasurer and deputy treasurer, all in favor saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Congratulations. Is that all of them? Or I gotta go to the second one here.
Number 2. Appointments for the board.
All right, for the Northwest Indiana Special Education Cooperative Board of Managers, do we have to vote for that position, or can
It's
we
not
just?
really a vote, the president can appoint.
Okay. You'll take
Yes,
that, Nate?
I accept.
All right, Nate will take the Northwest Indiana Special Education Cooperative Board of Managers. Legislative Liaison. Robert will take the legislation position and the policy.
That's me.
Deborah will take that. And the Lowell Redevelopment Commission.
We're gonna share.
Share that.
Katie and Nate will share that. All right. That's all of them, right?
No, construction.
Did I miss?
It's not on there.
It's on there. Yes, here, it's on there.
Perfect.
We need a construction one.
So what's that one called?
Construction liaison.
For all the, and Katie will take that as well. Perfect. What's this one for?
So this would be an agenda item.
Alrighty, moving on to, public comment related to agenda items. Catherine?
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Catherine Dressel. I'm very excited to come to this meeting. I became a Hoosier so I could vote for you guys. I'm very excited.
Thank you.
And I'm going to talk about the 5th grade middle school going together. I think it's a great idea. I'm all for it. I think it would help the transition to middle schools easier. You couldn't pay me $1 million to be a middle schooler again. Like, I would not do it. All the struggles they go through and all that stuff. And I think the town hall meeting was awesome. It was great. It was very informative. Like, people had questions, and teachers came, and everybody talked. It was good. And thank you for caring about like the teachers and the parents. And then I was wondering about the preschool. I have a 2-year-old. When are we gonna do this preschool? Like, I think it'll be great. There's need for it, so I'll be excited to hear about that. And the only negative thing I heard was the bus situation. It seems like there's a really good bus transportation. I've never had any complaints, so it's really good. My daughter has an awesome bus driver. But let's just keep a close eye on the kids, see like how they do, like how are they doing. And as a parent, you really need to advocate for your kids. Like, if they're having a hard time, just call school, like maybe it can be handled easily. And I just think it's a good idea. And I don't know, I'm all for it, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Superintendent's report?
Speaking of preschool, I'd like to hand the mic, so to speak, to Mr. Deal.
Good evening, board members, and welcome to your first night together. Just to kind of get our new trio of board members up to speed, we have been looking at a pre-K opportunity at Tri Creek now for a number of months. A part of that was the facility planning study, where that came out of our community feedback. Knowing that there is a great level of expertise in creating high-quality pre-K seating, we were able to look around the state through some fortunate networking, find a group out of Indianapolis called Transform Consulting, and their whole gig is ensuring that your district has high-quality pre-K seating. They've presented to the board a number of times now, and will continue to do so. A part of the MOU that we signed with them in agreement was a 2-phase process. We wanted to be very intentional with not just assuming what our community needed, but actually gathering info and data from community members to say, what's the demand right now? While anecdotally we can say that after the pandemic, a number of our pre-K programs no longer exist in the community, we can look at our demographer study and see the growth and make those assumptions. We wanted to get some actual tangible data to inform our decision. So the first phase was really a needs assessment. So they've completed from this school year up until January an actual needs assessment where we surveyed our community, not just our Tri Creek families, but we invited anybody from the community to let us know about what they currently do for pre-K, what they currently do for daycare, what their desires would be for that, types of programming, whether it was half day or full day and that kind of thing. So we had over 400 responses from that, which was really good. We were happy with the results. We did find that there was a kind of a specific demographic group that responded, typically like median household income, that was not at the free and reduced population level that we would see for those that would qualify. However, all of those folks expressed a need for this type of a program, that there is a huge demand for it. And the group at Transform then took that and were able to put together recommendations of, here's what we think you can do. And at the end of it, it came down to feasibility. The initial timeline shared with the board was the potential for a pilot pre-K program to start the 23-24 school year. That would require both facility and your staffing. They knew it was an aggressive timeline. However, based on what they got from the needs assessment, from the survey, and from visiting our schools, they determined in that report that it is feasible to do that. If we wanted to proceed, and if it was the board's wish, we could make that happen in the remaining months. Since that time, they haven't always been at the table for the facility planning meeting or the work that we've done with the architectural firms, and really talked about the grander district plans. It was kind of an isolated project for them. In sharing what we are currently talking about tonight, and in addition to what we had there from our presenter about the potential of a 5-6 learning center or academy, our recommendation tonight as a part of the update is that we continue that conversation, because there is a domino effect. While in their feasibility study, they found spaces where a pilot could work, and it's here at Lowell Middle School, with the potential of the 24-25 school year coming where you might look at that, you want to maybe look at like the long-range planning of like, what's the best time to do something that's not a short-term solution, but something that can really grow and thrive. So they were originally slated to present that study to you. I've asked them to postpone that until February, because we're going to be having conversation tonight, there's a work session next week, and another board meeting at the end of January. After that meeting, they're going to come back and they're going to share more about what they found in that feasibility study. I've also invited them to come to our work session next week, and we are going to have a representative from Transform to sit at that table, really just to listen, to learn, and hear about kind of the district programs, because at that point, they didn't know about that potential. It was kind of just thinking about what our current footprints were rather than footprints of the future. So they're going to learn a lot from that, and that might cause them to revise the recommendations that they make for the best decision for an early preschool program. I will say that in the recommendation, based on needs of community, rather than just looking at those incoming 5-year-olds, so truly like preschoolers, they actually saw that need for 3s, 4s, and 5s. And their initial recommendation was 3 starter classrooms, a 3-year-old classroom, a 4-year-old classroom, and a 5-year-old classroom, in each of those full day. So I'm really excited for you to see the report, but I think the time is right to kind of just put a temporary pause for a couple of weeks on it, so you guys can get more acclimated to what's been happening with the facility study, learn a little bit more and have discussion tonight as a board, go through our work session, and then right at the beginning of February, pick that back up again. The good news is if for some reason, all of those pieces come together and we decide that maybe pushing it for a temporary solution at the 23-24 school year isn't the right fit, they're very understanding and said, we can postpone phase 2 to the fall of next school year so that you really have the remainder of this year and an entire year to then begin your program in the 24-25 year, and that would be a part of the agreement that we've already put into place and has been board approved. So.
Building on the need too, the research validates the significance of getting kids in earlier, preparing them to be successful in kindergarten first all the way up. The research definitely supports the earlier introduction to education, the better.
Absolutely. And what these folks have is a wealth of expertise, not only in just like the logistics, the funding, the staffing, they know curriculum, they know instruction. So they were able to propose to us, and a part of their recommendation is the specific curricular focus, the instructional pedagogical approach that you're going to take for that program. And they have got a lot of levels of expertise that they can then train the staff that we put into those positions that follow best practices in research to make sure those kids are, like, their needs are being met, both from like social, emotional, behavioral, academic, everything, the whole child approach to get them ready for kindergarten.
Sounds good. Looking
I
forward.
will say too, having my little 3-year-old over there, ready to start preschool next year, it's a very high stakes competitive field right now to even get her in somewhere. So we need to be cognizant of that timeline if we really are trying to do the 23-24, because it's, people are gonna start knocking down doors and putting applications in like that.
And we actually, I saw that Hanover School Corporation
on-
just put in a preschool this year. They just ran their first advertising for registration for next school year already. So even though they said it's feasible and you could do it, we would be moving very, very quickly to make sure that we had seats ready to go for the start of next school year.
Did you say that would be in the middle school year?
Well, that's a part of like what you'll hear in February is that they were looking at 3 different options within the district that we had. The first recommendation is that we do have some spaces next to the early childhood development room that could potentially serve that purpose. Now, they're serving different purposes now, and that's why it needs to be a bigger conversation. The thought is if that's only 1 year maybe, would you want to put it there for a year only to move it out later on and have it bouncing around? It's kind of good to have that solidify the program, stability, growth in that space.
Would we try to put that in all 3 elementary schools, or just have one local?
That's what they want to come and learn about at the work session, exactly what potentially could happen and what spaces might be available. And that'll allow them to like redo and revise their recommendations.
By the way, they're working on fire alarm system, so that's part of the work.
I noticed the exit right there, so.
So thank you.
All right, so that's exciting. Also, one of our principals, Brandy Muha, has been assisting Mr. Deal in that charge, and both of them have done an extremely great job. We have a 6 classroom addition going on at Lake Prairie Elementary, And so the architects of VPS and Leggett are moving right along with that. Today we had the most recent update. I'm kind of looking at Dana, and I don't know if Kevin was on the call or Jay was on the call, but they got to see a schematic, and it's been a second rendering. The building principal, Mrs. Stolb's been involved, and they've taken a look at storage and teaching while where cabinetry goes, and windows and restroom locations, and tweaking and moving. So things are starting to come to life out there and get exciting for Lake Prairie.
So that's a physical expansion or redoing on the inside?
It's a physical expansion. We'll add on 6 additional classrooms, some small group learning spaces
To the south?
to the southwest corner.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So the idea is we're in design phase. We would go into bidding, early, late spring.
Hoping by March.
And then construction, sometimes this summer, due to this, 3-4 years ago, you could start a project in the spring and move in August. Well, those days are not existent at the moment due to supply chain.
And that would potentially accommodate the pre-K that we're talking about? Is that thought out?
It does provide expansion space if that becomes a reality, yeah.
Okay.
And so then we're looking at a project that potentially could finish anywhere, again, depending on construction, January of '24 to the summer of '24.
Okay, I'm looking forward to hearing more about it.
Yeah. Another update, operations referendum. There has been a political action committee that has been formed. It's co-chaired by Michelle Whitebrock, who I see in the audience tonight. And Michelle also is a support staff member during the school day in her job. So her evening gig is supporting the Vote for Tri-Creek Schools committee. And she co-chairs that position with Mr. Dustin Hudak, who's a longtime Lowell, and the treasurer for the organization is Mr. Josh Blink. And so they have begun their work to educate the community, and their mission is to have a successful referendum, which obviously our school district would benefit from, as well as our community.
That's great.
We held a school town hall meeting last week. Mrs. Johnson was there. I love the school town hall meetings because it's an opportunity to engage in our parents on a purposeful level in what I call raw, authentic conversation. We really don't prepare a slide deck or a presentation. People come in, list questions and concerns, and try to get all of that out, and then pick a starting point and then navigate our way through. Typically they're an hour and a half to 2 hours. This one was the longest one, 2 hours. Great insight, great concerns brought to the table, and just appreciated the really thoughtfulness, the really good thoughtfulness that parents came. You had some parents that came and said, hey, look, we were opposed to our 5th grader from Lake Prairie coming over here from 4th grade to 5th grade while construction plans are being made, and we were so against it, we considered moving out of the district, and then they showed up at the school town hall meeting and spoke favorably of their daughter's experience. So some really good dialogue. There were some concerns about transportation, 5th graders riding buses with 8th graders, and as well as 5th graders, do they go to the middle school dance or so? But we'll get more into that later in our presentation tonight. School town hall meeting was good. We have one slated for February on the operations referendum, and that's slated for February 8th at 7 p.m. And we'll make sure that we publicize that really well.
I'd like to say too, I've been to a few of those, and the last one was the biggest, and I definitely think the most impactful, talking to people as they left. So I definitely recommend as a board, if we try to attend those, just to hear what the community's saying, because it's very free speaking. It was really, really informational to hear the community and what people are feeling, thinking, and experiencing with their schools. So great job doing those.
It's very enjoyable for me. And that's all I have to update.
Thank you. Is there any staff recognitions?
There are staff recognitions. So we have an opportunity for community members, for parents, for students, for fellow colleagues on staff to go to our district website and give a testimony of someone who's just doing their job really well and want to recognize them for their work. So since the last time we met, we have from Lake Prairie Elementary School, our school nurse. It's from Angela Patrick, and the staff member being highlighted is Linda Miley. Principal Patrick indicated, Linda is a fantastic nurse. As a parent with a student currently at Lake Prairie and 2 others who also attended, I can tell you that Linda is kind and compassionate. Most significantly though, she is a true team player when it comes to looking at our entire corporation. Words cannot even begin to express how grateful I am that she is willing to come to Lowell High School and cover our nurse's office when we had no one. There are so many students who come through our nurse's office each day, and without someone with a medical background, it is extremely difficult to cover. I recognize that this takes her out of her own building, which adds more to those working in the office as well as Linda when she returns. I appreciate that Linda is a smiling face every time she has been to Lowell High School and is always willing to help out in a pinch. So. The next one is Jennifer Rose. She is a Lake Prairie 5th grade teacher, and a former student of hers said about Jennifer Rose, Mrs. Rose is caring, kind, and the most amazing person I know. She always understands when people are having a bad day, and she helps you. She helped me when I was having a bad day before. She helped me learn how to really read. When I was in 2nd grade, I was struggling with reading, but she got me through it. And now I'm not struggling as much anymore thanks to her. She did so much to help me in 2nd grade. I even had her in 5th grade, and that was by far my favorite school year. I got to have my favorite teacher and all my friends in that class, and I had the most fun in that class. There wasn't one day in her class that I didn't have a smile on my face. I always walked in with a smile and an even bigger smile walking out because of all the fun and happiness. She is my favorite teacher by far, exclamation point. Thanks to her, I am where I am now.
It's so nice to hear our students growing up and coming back.
Oh, yeah,
So,
for sure.
So we talk about great schools, great staff, great students. That makes our great community. And then finally, Teresa Chester, she works in the central office during the day, and after her time, she actually serves as an official for the Indiana Association of Track and Cross Country. And she was informed today that she was selected as the Meredith Payne Indiana Association of Track and Cross Country Coaches Official of the Year. So she's one of those with the gun that starts the runners. And she will be recognized at the organization's sectional council meeting in Indianapolis on Friday, February 3rd, so we're proud of her.
absolutely.
Excellent.
And that concludes our staff recognition.
Congratulations to all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Love hearing those every meeting. Alrighty, board member report, is there anything?
I have absolutely nothing to report.
Anybody else? Alrighty. Moving on, regular business consent items. Number 1, approve the minutes of the meeting held Thursday, December 8th, 2022.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Number 2, approve the minutes of the meeting held on Tuesday, December 20th, 2022.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor by saying aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Number 3, approve payroll and claims.
I'll make a motion to accept and approve payroll and claims.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor by saying aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Personnel. Number 1, approve the personnel report dated Thursday, January 12th, 2023.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? This is the smallest one I've seen in a while.
I know. That's what I thought.
All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Curriculum.
Nope. Personnel number 2.
Oh, I skipped that one. Number 2, approve the pay rate increase for Chantel Wilson, bus driver, effective retroactively with the 2022-2023 school year.
Make the motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I just want to say that I did look at her credentials, and she does come to us with extensive credentials, and I applaud you for looking back at that, because it is extremely difficult to secure good drivers, and that certainly will help keep her here.
Good job. All right, I have a motion and a second. All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. All right. Curriculum. Presentation on the possible 5th, 6th grade intermediate center.
Yeah, so the presentation is presenting the topic and having some extensive conversation. We've got 3 brand-new board members and feel like it's important to bring everybody on the same page. So we'd like to start kind of from the very beginning of how this topic came about, sort through it, all the steps, where we are now, and where the administration believes where we are in a recommendation, knowing that the board, this is a big move. You got a work session next Thursday, and then ultimately you really need to make a decision and vote on this January 26th because of construction timelines, and we'll talk about that. But we want to make sure there's due diligence, ample time for people to digest, understand, to make an informed decision. I will tell you that during the 21-22 school year, a district-wide facility assessment began. And looking at all 5 buildings in the district, we started out, looking at the expansive real estate here at this middle school. And we knew that the middle school here was designed for grades 5 through 8. And so I spoke to other schools, and this is in the summer when I just started, who had a 5 to 8 model. And the feedback that I got was, 5th graders in some of those models feel like they're isolated on an island by themselves. The teachers really lack the collaboration. The students don't feel like they're part of the larger school. And so as a superintendent, my mindset changed a little bit regarding, that's really not healthy for students or teachers. And so I dismissed that as a potential option. In the meantime, Lake Prairie, we knew looking ahead to this school year was out of space. And we knew that we needed to add on additional classrooms, but those don't go up overnight. So we really had 2 options. We could put mobile classrooms on the campus at Lake Prairie, or we could take a look at the empty classrooms that were sitting here at the middle school. The reason for that, the mobile classrooms would have cost our district approximately $450,000, lasted for 2 years, and then at the end of that time, you really have nothing to show for it. So trying to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars and knowing that, we want to do as much as we can for our employees, we took a look at bringing the 5th graders from Lake Prairie here for a temporary situation while the 6 classrooms were being built. A lot of parents expressed concerns with that. We hosted a meeting with all of the 4th grade parents at that time, because it would be their kids that then would go into 5th grade. We hosted the meeting here at the middle school We had a lot of dialogue and education about why we were entertaining the idea. We made lists of the concerns of parents. We went upstairs. We looked at the area. We held meetings with the teachers, with admin, obviously with the parents, the board, and we ended up moving forward recommending that. So currently this school year, we have our Lake Prairie fifth graders upstairs. All right, so back to the facility assessment. September, community meeting, November, community meeting. Moving forward, we get to February, April. In the meantime, there are these subdivisions being planned all throughout our community. So we started working with the town, gathering the information. And now we're at the point of, we need an expert in this area to give us some enrollment projections. One was embedded in the facility assessment, but we were looking for a second opinion as well. So a demographer came, collected all the information, and in July was able to produce the report. The report indicated that our enrollment projections would increase over the next 10 years of approximately 500 students, which really, and that's K through 12, which really didn't necessitate the need to build an additional building, because there was that kind of buzzword going on out in the community. At that time, we were uncertain about preschool and early childhood learning. Do we build a new facility for that? That was too premature to go down that road. Not having tested it, proven the model, the expense. So we finished also the facility study, and the price tag on that was approximately $110 million, $120 million, with a whole laundry list of pie in the sky wants. Our tax revenue was estimated, even with a capital referendum, at approximately $30 to $40 million. And it's the screeching brake sound of, wait a minute, even if we run a capital referendum, we're only getting this much of a whole list of desires. And our public, our staff would be like, what's going on? So how do we stretch the dollar? We returned to the notion of the middle school because it was slated to still have empty classrooms. What if we took all of the items we heard from the parents and were sensitive to and looked at this middle school facility as a grade 5-6 center, isolated, well, as a learning community under the same roof as a 7 and 8. So the populations would be separate but share the building. We had architects come through, take a look, and all the firms that kept coming through were like, yeah, this building is natural for that, because you have a natural separation either from the ground level or the second level. You have a natural separation of what they would refer to as houses, so you could stack them, share your common areas. And then I pointed out, even as I drove up to the middle school for the first time, after I first got hired, and I'm like, which driveway do I go into? And that seems to be a recurring theme with others who come here for the first time. And so there's even opportunity to have separate entrances to what we would refer to as an intermediate school or center, grade 5-6, and on the opposite side of 7 and 8. That might help clean that out. There's the other notion, if you talk to the middle school admin, like, Andy, we have grades 6 through 8 here, we have the high school opportunity center here, we have central office here, we're getting Lake Prairie 5th grade here, and we're getting ready to move the special education preschool here. We're in a little bit of an identity crisis. We feel like the dumping ground. We feel like we're a hodgepodge. And so what started for financial reasons to stretch the dollar, at that time said, we really need to back up and take a look district-wide to see, can we maximize the resource that we have here in the real estate. So I'm gonna turn it over to Kevin, because I went to Kevin and pulled the cabinet together, and we posted lots of questions and areas we needed research. Well, one of Kevin's task was to reach out and find out who else in the state is running an intermediate center of grades 5 and 6, and so tag Kevin, you are it.
Tag accepted. So that was part of the joy, is that just because you have the space, we want to think about, is it good for kids? So looking around the state of Indiana, I wanted to get a cross-section of different types of schools. So thinking about those that have been solidified for many years, proven programs, some that are like in the early phases of implementation and adoption, and even some of those that are kind of considering and or beginning the transition right now. In addition to that, I wanted some of those schools to have socioeconomics and demographics that were similar to us, size similar to us, but then I wanted to cross the spectrum too. So from that, 9 schools really stuck out to me because they cover each of those different categories. Close to us, looking at Duneland and the Chesterton schools, looking a little bit further east to Kessling and LaPorte, a little bit further east going to Goshen, jaunt down I-65, looking at Avon schools, looking at a couple of intermediate schools in Fishers, Indiana, and Danville. So collectively, the first step was just like, what is the makeup, the design, the bones that comprise these buildings? So how many kids do they have? What is their demographic and socioeconomic makeup? How many teachers do they have? How many principals and admin do they have? How many school counselors? How many nurses? Just like, what's the actual makeup and look of these different programs? So we gathered all of that just so we could look at them comparatively from a staffing standpoint. But again, those are just numbers and words on a page. I wanted to actually talk to the folks that are living and breathing in those facilities. So I reached out either to district level administrators or building level administrators from those programs and set up just Google Meet calls to talk with them and learn. And a part of the cabinet meeting was, these are the types of things we want to glean to learn as much as we can about like the student experience and the student benefits. So as much as I wanted to ask them all, like, tell me your transition story, like if you went from a 6-8 to this, tell me that. Oftentimes I got the response of, Kevin, we've been doing this since the late 90s. I would have to go way back to an admin before me to get those answers. But I can tell you this, here's why no one in my school community would ever want to move back or entertain the idea of leaving what we have. So that was a really common conversation we had, was like the benefit and the value added that they saw as a school community of having a 5-6 intermediate center. What I can tell you is every one of them looks different. Some of them have 5-6 as a standalone facility. Some of them have 5-6 and 7-8 under the same roof, kind of like what Mr. Anderson was proposing. Some of them began as isolated and are looking to bring them together, which is what Duneland is in the process of transitioning to right now in Chesterton. But the most common thread from all of them is, if you decide to go this way and you form the committee that you've talked about, that committee has to decide, is your intermediate school going to be elementary in this kind of instructional approach where you've got some safeguards and a little bit more control, or are you going to treat them like a middle school and more like secondary students? And what I can share with the board is that every one of them spoke to the benefits of keeping some of those controls and safeguards in place for your 10, 11, and 12-year-olds who are at a developmental age, a pivotal age of transition, not only academically as they're starting to get into more departmentalized classes, getting ready for courses like pre-algebra and algebra, but also behaviorally. We know what that age looks like for kids 10 and 11 and 12 as they're starting to slowly mature. So by putting some of those guardrails in place, they spoke not only to behavioral supports for those kids, kind of keeping the 6th graders young just another year before they all free rein to the middle school, but they also spoke to the academics. And I think one of the most compelling things was the testimonies from the teachers that said, we used to be a district of X amount of elementary schools and all of our 5th grade teachers were spread out. And the 6th grade teachers were at the middle school. To bring them together for such like an important transition, to say like 5 and 6 were a professional learning community under the same roof, working together day in and day out, that was the thing that they said our teachers will never let go of. And quite honestly, some of them said, we have teachers K through 4 who fight to get those positions whenever they open, because there's such a desire of that small learning community with such a specific focus about we are the bridge from elementary to middle school. There wasn't a magic one-size-fits-all of like how they treated that to say that we're all going to be self-contained and then we're going to go to a rotating schedule. There were a lot of different approaches. I heard self-contained. I heard team taught, where you had like Dana and I would split. We're on the humanities teacher of ELA and social studies, and Dana is science and math, and the kids would cross. I heard kids being fully mobile, almost like a middle school. So each one of them did it a little bit differently. Some of them treated their 5th grade a little bit differently than their 6th grade, where there was that gradual release of responsibility. So even though there isn't a magical solution to that, what I did hear was there is immense potential with it. That looking at that and what you can do both academically and behaviorally to support that specific age group of kids is very worth your time and interest. So those conversations were wonderful, and I learned a lot, but they were truly 30,000 level foot. Like, we didn't go on site visits, we didn't visit classrooms, we haven't actually been in the trenches with those folks yet. It was really just learning as much as we can to ensure that we were going down the right pathway of exploring it, of considering it. So at this time, if I could share a little bit about like what we've done since then, since we really saw the potential, we knew that we had to have conversations with our house. So the first group we wanted to talk to was our 5th grade Lake Prairie teachers, because they were under that assumption of this was a temporary fix. There were 6 classrooms being added. To use Andy's phrases, we didn't want it to feel like a bait and switch. This was never the intended plan until everything in the timeline that Andy shared came to be, where we really saw that as being a viable option. So we met with them first and talked with them. After that, we invited every single 5th grade teacher to a classroom from all 3 elementaries, and we talked and presented to them. We then invited all 6th grade teachers from here at the middle school, sat and talked with them. The next morning, 6, 7, and 8, every teacher at a faculty meeting sat and talked with them. And then as recently as last week, we had a town hall meeting where teachers showed up and about 25 to 30 community members alongside of them. So we were very intentional in communicating that we're inviting you to these conversations to talk about this. And very similar to what we're sharing with the board tonight, we gave them the full story. That this wasn't a very quick decision, but it was a process of 18 months plus of work in that facilities study. I think one of the things that I try to share with them is that we have very much been in like survival mode with a lot of the things that we've been able to do here with the recession, the changing of the funding formula at the state level. We have made our dollars go so far in this district, and it's a lot of pride that I feel like we've had the opportunities and the programs, the things that we do with that. I feel like you're at a ripe opportunity right now to think about, here's where we've been, and we don't want to plateau. Just because it's comfortable in what we know, when we see an opportunity for growth and change for the good reason, for student experiences, student programs, student opportunities, when you see that opportunity and it's researched and it's best interest of what you can do to grow and increase that ceiling, that's where I get really, really excited. And that's where the work has really taken me to enjoying these conversations and getting feedback and hearing both the excitement and concerns that people have. One thing that we know is that a lot of the questions are in the minutia. Will there be a playground? Or are they going to go to their specials? Like, there's a lot of those questions about like the actual day-to-day, which of course matter, but when we've tried to answer that, like those are for us to decide. Like, we are at the opportunity now that if the board chooses to go in this direction, a committee would be formed immediately, and that team would start to do the site visits, would start to really get into those classrooms, would talk about like here at Tri-Creek, what are our outcomes of the makeup to make that like have its own unique identity and character, so that it's ours. So that those 4th grade kids are looking forward to something that's a unique experience that's awaiting them as they become students in that intermediate school. So with that potential, with that excitement, it's been a joy to kind of share and to get the feedback. And that kind of brings us to the board meeting tonight and kind of the timeline that we have in a couple of weeks ahead. And I'll pass it back to Andy to kind of speak to where we are. And yeah.
I do have one question.
Yeah, please.
And I might have missed this, but were the teachers, the 5th and 6th grade teachers that are here from all 3 schools, were they ever invited to share or converse with the teachers that are in the other positions that had that extra energy?
Yeah, so we tried very hard not to put the spotlight on them because we didn't want that pressure. And we actually told them that when we went to the room, like, you're gonna be invited to this meeting, but please know, it's a conversation, and we're not gonna be like, Mr. Cleafish, tell us all about your experience. They willingly just started to share openly. And they talked about the things that they saw that were benefits. They talked about loving their pod. One thing I thought was really nice is like, they said, back at the building, they were always in our classroom. So I had my 27 kids. Right now, all of these kids are shared amongst the three of us. I know them all. I get to work with them all. They're dabbling a little bit with some rotations and some flexible grouping. So they talked a lot about it. That's not to say that they didn't come with concerns and things that they knew needed to be addressed, but that's where we said, that's the power of people who have lived this. We can learn so much from the three of them and their assistants who have been doing this for a year, where they can inform, like, make sure you think of this. So yeah, they shared openly, but not because they were forced to do that.
Right.
It was something that they willingly did. And we had representatives at the town hall meeting who also, again, we never forced the night that way, but she was willing to share and is going to speak about her experiences.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
And if they weren't bold enough to share the experience with us, we had our union discussion meeting yesterday, and all 5th and 6th grade teachers were invited in addition to the discussion committee. So they certainly could have channeled opposition. And one thing that I noted at the end of the meeting was it was a testament of, since this topic came about, of how we've used our newly adopted guiding principles, shared responsibility, listen to learn, seek to understand, and the whole list of items that go with that. That union discussion meeting yesterday did not feel like a union meeting at all. There was no feeling of opposition, just questions of inquiry. Well, what about this? What about that? And a consensus of this is the right thing to do for kids. That was a great feeling.
And I didn't get to share this with you yet. I had 4 or 5 of the folks that were in attendance at that meeting that were walking out the door with me, stopped me and said, this is so proactive. Like, thank you for being proactive and not reactive, and being so thoughtful in this planning, not only in the way that you've communicated with everything that happened. They said, this just feels, and the reason the conversation went so well is because it's a proactive decision that is rooted in lots of conversation and lots of thoughtfulness. And I thought, again, what a great way to walk out that door, and what a nice compliment to hear from those that were at the table with us.
So, some other talking points to Intermediate Center. According to the demographic report, Oak Hill School will be out of space after this next school year. And so that helps to answer the question, well, why do we need to make a decision in the very near future? It's because you either will need to add additional learning spaces over at Oak Hill, and if you do that, you now have to increase the cafeteria. Because the cafeteria is landlocked, meaning it's not on the perimeter of the building, the only area for it to expand would be into the gymnasium, and then it requires building on another gymnasium. And the year after that would be Three Creeks. So that's kind of the other talking point. Both Three Creeks and Oak Hill have recently had classroom additions. And so are we continuing to go down the road with the adage of adding on another Band-Aid as the response, or is this a pivotal moment to bring an identity to this facility, clean up some things, have a program that's good for kids? In 5th grade, being removed from those buildings provides then room for enrollment increases as well as potential preschool in those buildings as well.
With my construction background, I know that it's advantageous to, let's say, in the Lake Prairie example of extending and adding 6 classrooms, if that facilitates needs for the projections, it's always cheaper to add just a little bit more while everybody's on site and they're digging foundations, they just dig them a little longer. It's a lot cheaper to do that, especially in today's, well, not today's dollars, but to do it today versus doing it 5 years down the road. You know, you have that flexibility, and you can use that space for a variety of things, but when the time comes when expansion hits us, you could say, well, we're not doing that, and we're not using it for storage anymore, it's classroom space, and it's already set up to go. So some of that thinking, you know, is purposeful.
Nobody has a crystal ball, right? And the demographer will tell you, we're giving you the report based on our experience over 30-plus years. The projections were low. If the economy tanks a little bit, these subdivisions don't develop out, this is what you expect. If everything develops out as is, this is what you should plan on, which has been our guide. Because the third projection, if the economy just starts booming and really going gangbusters and you get even more subdivisions, then you could do that. Well, we're not seeing that at the moment. That's not to say that it couldn't happen, but having a flexible option now to maximize this space, you do provide flexibility in the future without making an expensive decision that you could put on classroom additions at the elementaries, but then what if the projected enrollments don't increase? Then we're still back in the same situation, identity crisis, extra space here, and empty classrooms here and there.
And we have to be responsible to the taxpayers.
So, big decision. We wanted to open the dialogue, find out additional concerns, because we've got architects, construction managers that are sitting outside on their bulldozers, knowing that if we need to be ready for August of '24, we really need to sort through this at the work session next week. They want to know how to kind of frame that out. If the board is entertaining and receptive to this intermediate center, that will help next week's meeting go faster and more focused, and then circle back around January 26th for the board to make an official decision based on that work session. So I'm really asking from the board, what are the additional concerns, and does this seem to be, are you receptive to moving down this path?
I'm certainly receptive myself. I'd like to see some plans of physically what it looks like, what the plan is. The timetable, I'd like to see that. I'd like to have a conversation with the architect and ask questions. I mean, obviously, if there's a need, we need to move forward with it. But, and again, I understand time is of the essence, but we don't want to rush, especially for the new people. We don't want to rush into something that we're not familiar with. I don't want to vote on things that I'm not privy to, so it's educating the new people.
Originally, when we were talking about it, I was not for it at all. I was kind of opposed to it, and then as we kind of got along there and started learning more about it, and then listening to Andy and the rest of the administration, and then, you know, Kevin presenting on all the, you know, educational, you know, benefits of it, you know, and then I started, you know, in one of the meetings, I just kind of started turning towards it. It's like, at the end of the day, you know, I'm gonna trust their opinions on, you know, what they need to, you know, where Charter Creek needs to go. You know, at the end of the day, that's what we're hiring them for. Right.
I think as a parent of a child that this would affect, and a board member, I have been adamantly against it from the beginning. I will say that, especially after the town hall meeting, my views on it are slightly changing. I'm still not 100% on board. I have a lot of questions, a lot of concerns. As a parent, I think, you know, before we can say go, it would be really nice to know what model is, and I know that you've said and spoke of, you know, well, that's something that the committee would do, is help put that together, but I don't know that I feel comfortable voting yes with not knowing what model it would end up falling under, that elementary model or that more middle school model. Just as my own experience with my fifth graders, or my kids going through fifth grade, I should say. And then as a board member, just looking at like fiscal responsibility, I got the cost of building additions on buildings and the opening space here, but I'm more concerned about staffing and operations costs and making a vote on something that we would have to employ some more staff, not knowing if we can even pay for current staff if we don't pass the referendum that's on the docket, so.
Wouldn't the current staff from the fourth grade or the fifth grade come over?
Well, I think that there would be additional need for some staffing.
Oh, I'm sure, but
Yeah.
it would be minimal, wouldn't it? I would think.
I don't know, that's some of the questions
Right,
that aren't,
right.
you know, aren't necessarily fully out there on the table, and it would depend on the models and.
And that's why it's great for us to have it.
Good.
So I can tell you administratively, from a high-level view, we've gone down those road, that path to say, okay, to project how many additional staff might we need. We cannot give definitive answers until we know actual numbers. So for example, if you've got average class size at one of the elementaries of being 17 kids, and another one at 22, and another one at 28, when you bring them together, you can balance class size. That actually might free up a section of students that you would reallocate as a full-time employment in another area of need. We have the fine arts program that's growing, and how does that get impacted based on student course requests? Sometimes we don't know those decisions, but we can make projections and estimates about full-time employers. Like, we know that based on our conversations with the administration, that the model that we're looking at, this current middle school has a principal and 2 assistant principals, and a guidance counselor and a social worker. We are entertaining taking a grade 5-6 intermediate, having a principal.
So that would be an additional principal?
No, so taking the 3 and dividing them up. So,
No additions there.
yep, keeping principal over here, promoting potentially, you go through the interview process, or however the best process is to assign that, a principal of the middle school, and then have a supporting assistant principal that primarily handles discipline for both grade levels, and potentially add on another guidance counselor or social worker to help in that charge, so that we have 3 guidance counselors on site.
So that would still add one.
Could potentially add one. The other talking point is, what does that look like in some of the other elementary schools where they also already have a dean of students, and they have SSAs, and do we shift one of them now? So it's a road that's doable. We don't foresee additional major cost, but we can't give details until we know the nuances of the enrollment numbers.
And that's the center of every decision we're gonna be making.
And we do that every year at, especially high schools. You make staffing decisions every year based on numbers of sections. And some years, kids will sign up for courses and you need additional staff, and other times they don't, and you have to rearrange or reduce, or.
I think a lot of other questions I'm hoping get answered next week. Obviously, if we move 5th grade here, you as the administrative office need to be moved, what exactly that looks like, how that looks. So just overall, all the moving pieces, and I do feel like it's rushed, before this board came on, we had kind of tabled it, at least my understanding was it was kind of tabled, and then all of a sudden it was kind of back on the table, and we need an answer by the end of the month. So for me, I don't understand the rush necessarily. If I get that Oak Hill's gonna be out of space, but, maybe we could take a little bit more time to kind of figure that all out, but maybe we can't, so.
I would like to say something too, from the unique perspective of being a 5th grade teacher and a 6th grade teacher. I taught 6th grade at Maryville Intermediate, and I also taught 5th grade in the FEMA trailers out in Virginia. Neither one was very ideal of a situation. The struggles that we had at Maryville Intermediate School, I think, were more leadership and a lot of the excitement that I see coming from you guys and the opportunity that you have to create a team and have this cohort of 5th and 6th grade focused teachers, that alleviates a lot of my concern with that. Also hearing from middle school principals at the town hall meeting, talking about how this could maybe lift some of the burden that they're seeing behaviorally coming from their 6th grade students and ease that transition for them. Again, sounds like we can really plan this well, but the planning part is what really matters. Teaching in a trailer, because that would have to be another table option, if, like we had out at Lake Prairie. We were on our own, on an island. You had to go in and out of the school on rainy, terrible days, to go to lunch, to go to, you know, your specials or any other things. And nobody ever came out, which was kind of, the teachers loved it, because you knew you're never gonna get a surprise visit from the principal in your room, because you were just alone out there. So if we are getting close with Oak Hill in the next year, and then the following year with Three Creeks, I understand the push to rush this a little bit. But I also understand a lot of the need to make sure that plan is set in place. But the more you guys speak on it, the more positive I feel about that. And I've been following it for some time, so. Initially, I was not a fan of it.
In a number of town hall meetings and board meetings and work sessions, like Kyle's probably sick of it now, I've talked about dominoes, right? And it's all about like striking the right domino to have the effect that you want of the largest impact going forward. And I think, like, to Deborah's point, if you don't strike the domino at the right time and you're looking and you're holding for the potential of building a new gymnasium here, that would then potentially stall the entire district's wide worth of projects. And one thing when we were talking with the architect that I think has been really valuable about the people at this table is we talk very specifically with intentionality about like individual projects like 5-6. But we know in the grand scheme, this is a district-wide vision that we're creating, and every single decision will have a ripple effect that touches things like the dreams we have for the athletic facilities, the dreams we have for the renovations that impact each of the 5 buildings in some way. And that's why I think there's a sense of urgency to it, is because all of those other projects are contingent upon the whole rather than the individual.
It certainly gives the opportunity for the K-4, if that's what they become, elementary schools, to have a little bit more space, which in some of the planning meetings last year when the architects were here, that's all that kept being said by the building representatives. Like, we have nowhere to take groups of students, we are low on bathrooms, we don't have a room for our teachers to have space. They're very, very cramped. So it does have a domino effect in that case too.
We've used, when we've done presentations before, we said, like, you know, pre-pandemic, when we would have strategic planning, we were talking about like academic interventions and supports and finding ways for those programs to be. Never on our radar was like, so where's the behavioral intervention classrooms? Because we didn't have that. You know, like, those were things that we recognized as prioritized needs coming out of the pandemic, that like we were looking at exploring and partnering with these groups of behavioral specialists, levels of expertise we didn't have, to bring in to meet our kids' needs, but our buildings weren't designed for that. So you've got these great consultants and these great resources, but you're like, well, today you're gonna be here, and then tomorrow you're gonna be there, because there's no open flexibility in those spaces. And that's something that I think is one of those dominoes too, is what's gonna be the need in 3 to 5 years? Like, what's gonna be that programmatic need that we don't even know today, but we wanna have the opportunity to expand to when it presents itself?
Regarding, so for preparation for next week, we won't have a model. And we won't have a model because we want to honor our teaching staff and our parents and take due diligence, go to site visits, talk to people. And to put a model and promise a model in 2 weeks would be a disservice not only to them, but even ourselves.
Do you have examples of models, multiple models that you could consider, and then maybe present some of those, not committing to any one of them, but certainly give us some options of what potentially may be used?
Yep. And we've shared those in all of our presentations.
I'd like to do that.
We can give some general cost of the building. Every architect, we interviewed 3 different firms. Every one of them said, when you break new ground for the classroom additions, you're going to spend more money than renovating. for, at this facility, you're really looking at, putting on a multi-purpose room. And renovating this space in here, but we'll go in more detail with that. We can give you general cost, but giving a price quote requires a lot of time and research, and they've got a massive job right now. So when we're looking at the conceptual level, they can speak to it, but not with great detail.
Maybe before that meeting, if, like, I don't know if you've seen the full middle school, I got the opportunity yesterday by chance. That was very helpful to get to see this layout and walk through the school, to kind of understand what you're talking about more visually. So maybe before that meeting, we can get everybody through.
You wanna
like,
take a
what we
tour of the middle school?
And go through the exercise of, this is what we would like to do with it, so we can visually see it. I know what the school looks like, I helped build it. But it's been a long time, and again, the use of the facility has changed
And
dramatically.
seeing the empty space right now is very, if there's so much empty space.
Yeah.
And that would be
Potential
helpful, I
space.
agree.
Potential space, yeah, so, it was very helpful to see, to have that walkthrough yesterday, you know, by chance, so I think, you know, be good for fellow board members too as well.
Do you envision that very first thing, or do you envision sitting down with architects, running some scenarios, then stopping, taking a tour?
I think seeing that just prior at some
Yes.
point, so we know what the architects are talking about.
Okay.
Just
Do you
before
wanna
the
do it
meeting,
as
just
a
do a
group,
run-through.
or do you, because you've already been on the tour,
I pretty much know I've
Yeah.
got 2 kids here, so. I
so
pretty much
do you wanna do it as a group, or do you wanna schedule a time in advance to?
Well, I think in the saving time, I think, again, if you wanna go, if you're not worried about it, to go as a group, so that way what's being said is everybody hears the same thing.
Everybody's kinda on
And
the
it gives
same
us
page.
opportunity to bounce our own. If I hear her question, it may stimulate a question that I have.
Would I even suggest, if we wrap up soon, even doing that tonight, while we're all here?
We'll be out here by 8:30.
I'm like, we still have,
5
No.
minutes.
yeah, we still have finance people
Yes.
to go, so.
I'm just-
Well, we can play it by ear.
Yeah, we'll see how everybody feels after, but I'm not opposed to it.
And then staffing costs, again, we can give some general ballparks, and we can definitely speak to the admin offices, because now that we will be recommending this.
Mhm.
And so we wanna make that very clear, this would be our recommendation, and, so we have some ideas now for our admin offices, and we'll speak to that as well.
Good.
That's all I think I've got the list, plans and templates, and general costs, staffing costs, and admin offices, and a tour.
And if we think of anything, we'll email you at midnight.
2 in the morning.
I certainly.
Is that gonna, some of the ideas too, as far as how the traffic would flow, you know,
Okay.
Yeah, I'd really be interested in how that would look.
You sat in that line.
Oh my goodness. I seriously almost watched 3 people crash into each other today at the pickup. Like,
But I'll bet your cell phone was involved.
3. No, well, it's because of the way that the traffic sits out here, that like people don't, they try and go around the people that are waiting to turn in. And so it's like people coming head on at each other, like, now where do we go? Cause there's nowhere.
was it like trying to get out of the high school parking lot back when you were in school?
Yes, exactly.
There's always at least 2 a day, right?
Yeah.
Alright,
No idea.
we good? Moving on.
All right.
Business operations, number 1, approve the resolution 2023-01 to establish responsible bidding practices and submissions requirements of public works projects.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I just want to say that I did read it thoroughly, and I think it's very, very important to have guidelines for anybody that's submitting proposals to the school.
Oh,
So,
definitely.
Very
You know what
thorough.
you're getting then.
And plus it adheres to law.
What he said.
All right. All in favor, we're saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Number 2, accept the annual uniform conflict of interest statement from Dana Bogathy, Executive Director of Business Operations.
I didn't realize your husband was here, and I'll make a motion to accept that.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor by saying aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Number 3, accept the annual uniform conflict of interest statement from Lisa Stobe, Lake Prairie Elementary School Principal.
I will make the motion.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Number 4, approve the signed license agreement with the Lennar Homes of Indiana LLC.
I'm guessing you want to talk about this.
Yeah.
A little bit?
So we'll start from the beginning. Got a call from Lennar Homes to say, we've got this subdivision over by the high school that's gone in. The problem is it's not getting any traffic for people to look at the homes. It's kind of hidden because there's an established neighborhood and then the new construction is behind. And they're looking for really a directional sign to make people aware that there's a new subdivision back there. School, would you be receptive for us putting up a sign? And I put the details of the sign. Let's see, the actual dimensions were, and there were pictures, I believe. Pardon me?
Mm-hmm.
It should be like, it was like 4 by 6, but it had to be 18 inches off the ground, so
Yeah.
it ended up being like 5, 6.
5 by
Yeah.
6, yeah.
So they, did consult with the town. The town said, hey, you need to get permission from the property owner. The town does not have a problem with it. So, in the spirit of being good neighbors and in our strategic plan, internal and external relationships with local businesses and community partners, et cetera, we desire to be a good neighbor, right? A good partner. And Lennar made a gesture to make a donation to an organization associated with, indirectly with our school mission. So in putting this on the agenda, as you know, there's some sentiment from the board that has a background in this industry, and that you've got a large billion-dollar corporation nationwide that could be taking advantage of us. And by putting a sign on our property, we're in essence endorsing, their name, their product. And oftentimes when developments go into communities, there's an incentive for the communities to welcome them as developers with substantial donations up to even $500,000. So with the town of Lowell, Lennar obviously seeks permitting and the permission to develop out. So with Lennar, in that particular community, they are the builders, they weren't the developer. With the plans to go in north of the middle school, they're both the developer and the builder. So in those arrangements with the town of Lowell, there is, I believe that they call it open space fee or money that's set aside that is directed back to the town for the town to develop either sidewalks or parks or, any community type of shared space. So, I did reach back out to Lennar Homes to indicate the concern, and the conversation was, this is impacting our community. Our school district is making modifications district-wide based on projected enrollment, and just want to make sure that we're not being taken advantage of, so we're suggesting maybe partnering with installing a playground at one of our facilities or making a substantial contribution. And the response was, are we looking at like a $50 to $100 donation per month, for however long, or are we looking like a $20,000 donation? I said, well, the $20,000 at minimum. He indicated, they're having a hard time pushing those homes. The market is not what it was once, but receptive to the conversation and would reach out to the, you know, the next person in line.
I'm just curious, why that spot? Why not right up around the corner onto by that cornfield?
They have one there.
Okay,
It's closer to the proximity of the entrance.
okay. And the other concern that I have, well, there's multiple, but the other one I would have is, does it block any visibility of that entrance? I saw where it was, it's ground level. If it were higher, you could see underneath it, but it's 5 foot or 6 foot.
Yeah, it's 6 foot tall, 18 inches underneath, so you're definitely not seeing underneath it.
And there's that concern of that corner, you know, that's one thing, and you're talking high school kids. What was the other thing? Oh, the other thing is, in the past, we've never allowed private, for-profit corporations to put any political or any advertising on schools. If we allow this, are we opening ourselves up to others saying, well, you did it for them, and then possible litigation at our expense? These are just some thoughts that I have.
So to respond to those three items, the first one is, we have control wherever the sign would be placed. And we also have, we can discontinue it at any time with a 10-day written notice. Two, it is the only subdivision even in the proximity of that. And so, you know, we had conversation, are we now favoring one over the other, and where do you then draw the line? There's really no other business or anything along that corridor where that is of concern. And we're not talking about across the street of Commercial Avenue and running, you know, advocating then a sign on the other side of Commercial Avenue now where there's a lot of competition. So we didn't feel like that was a community concern because it was really directing people to, hey, there's opportunity here. The third, we did consult board policy to say, is it even permissible according to our policy, which it was, it is. And so I did hear back from Lennar, and they are willing to donate $5,000 and indicate that that would be the maximum amount. I did reach back out to the town to talk about, you know, the open fee money that they've negotiated with Lennar Homes to see if they would be willing to partner with us using some of those funds. And I threw out the example, potential playground here at the middle school that we would leave open after school hours for community use, because if there's a neighborhood coming that way, walk over, so we would need to sort through that. Town was very receptive to that. I indicated at the high school, we had plans to move the tennis courts to another location. Perhaps it's a donation in some capacity to the new tennis courts that are already open for community use. They were receptive to that. And they also talked about possible plans to build a new pool and open that up to the community. But if that's open to the community, you know, before school hours or after school hours, we would want to partner with the town to staff that after hours, to which they were receptive as well. So receptive is different from a promise, is different from a contract. So at the end of the day, it looks like this particular item before you is, it's no expense to us. It does extend, according to one of our goal areas, about that partnership with the community. I think the other thing to think about is sometimes not coming across as greedy when you start developing and enter a relationship. They're a big corporation, right? And they're going to be here for maybe 2 or 3 years and probably pick up and or longer.
Yeah.
Building 500 homes right here. That's pretty
Yeah,
long.
that was my concern, is the length of time in the contract that it says that they would keep the sign up.
Well, it's just for that subdivision.
Right, but it states that it is until the final home is transferred in ownership. So, I mean, that could potentially be years.
Again, I would defer back. We can cancel this at any time with a 10-day notice.
So with that being said, they donate 20 grand or whatever they're gonna do,
It would be 5.
5.
or
They
5
said
grand.
5.
That doesn't even put, I mean, if you talk about a playground, that wouldn't even buy you.
No, it wouldn't, but I think the other talking point is they've allotted money for the community that the town is receptive to redirecting back to the school.
Receptive.
I would like a little more time on this, for a little bit more digging, communications with the town. Because it's kind of a deferment, and that's an advertising cost for them. They want the sign there because it's the entrance, and there isn't really a clear spring run sign there.
Why don't they put it right at their front entrance?
It's messy because of the landscaping, so, it's also real estate agent,
Yeah.
it's that. What's happening is, they know that people are coming from other towns to our school for sports. They're pulling in right there at the high school. They see, oh, I might wanna live in Lowell, we're kinda thinking about that, let's go drive through here. It is a huge marketing opportunity for them
Prime
with
real
the
estate.
traffic,
It
with if they're seeing Lowell athletics and Lowell schools and Lowell, choir and music, whatever we have going on at the schools. It's a very good opportunity for them to have that right out there in front with their arrow directing you exactly to their model home, because their new model is right there on that road that
Yeah.
we would be driving down.
So is there electricity involved, so at night it's lit up, illuminated?
No.
Probably
No.
not.
Is
I
there-
mean, that's.
Who's gonna do the landscaping? Right now, they run the mower right across it, and with the sign, you're gonna have weeds growing up, who's gonna do that, our guys?
We maintain the trimming around it.
So that would be, I mean, it's minute, but it's still
But it's still
additional
something.
work.
Right.
I think that there's a little bit more push that we could maybe do with them, because it's marketing, it's not just donations, this is a marketing, even as their real estate team is putting and dumping money into marketing, so.
At a minimum, if you were to have to, acquire a billboard, you're looking at $500 to $1,000 a month.
Or more. depending on where
More,
it's at.
depending on the location and what the
Prime real
billboard,
estate's
right,
like $2
what the
grand.
billboard, houses, is it lit up at night, is it, all the things. And so I feel like for the potential of, at minimum, the contract states 2 years, to more than that, and I understand we can cancel it anytime, but,
Would we have to return the money if we shorten that duration? Say we did it a year instead of the 2 years, would we have to get 50% of that 5,000 back?
So I
It's a
see that,
donation.
I see that working two ways, right? Because this was an overnight phone call, hey, are you receptive to this? Hey, yes, we are, but 5,000 and that's it. So I see it going either two ways. Either one, there's an actual, it's not a licensing agreement, but it's an actual contract with compensation embedded in. Or it's just in good faith, you're giving us a licensing agreement and we're gonna make a donation. So I would
Hey,
say,
if the sign does what it's supposed to and gets everybody to buy their homes, they might not be there for a full 2 years, but, so.
well, I think the other talking point is, we've got construction trades that we just added to our program. And our vision is for our kids to build houses. And, you've got a major developer here. Is there opportunity to open a good relationship, and would down the road they be receptive to donating a lot? Or we've got a lot of construction that's getting ready to start, and sometimes people need fill dirt, or they're hauling dirt off, and hauling dirt off is expensive. So there's more possibly to this than just the sign sitting in the yard.
Well, it's worth some further discussion, but just not to vote on it tonight.
Yeah, I think I'd like to make a motion to not approve this and table it,
Okay.
For a future vote.
So I will take that as superintendent marching orders to go out and say, hey, look, our board is willing to walk away from this. We feel like this is an impact on our community, and yes, there's opportunity here to be more substantial partners.
Well, even as you're saying too, with the building trades, there's so many opportunities there that if in our first dealings, we don't really dig into those opportunities, we might not get that chance again. So I just don't wanna miss that chance, knowing how vested they are in this community. And they're in the other community, they're in Hanover, they're in Crown Point, and they're building pretty quickly and selling pretty quickly. So this is naturally gonna be their next spot, and that's probably gonna start pretty soon too,
Okay.
seeing that.
All right, we'll see what we can do.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do you want to make a motion and to
Yeah.
table?
Do I have a motion to table, business operations number, what was it? 4.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor of tabling it?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passed. All right. Number 5. Approve the request by the LM Premier Dance Studio to use the Lowell High School auditorium for a recital in the spring of 2023.
Yeah, I'd like to defer to Mr. Becker. This is his lane, and he knows all the details. Mr. Becker, what do we got?
So at the end of November, beginning of December, I got a call from a representative from Ellen Premier Dance Studios asking if they could rent out our auditorium in the high school. My first question anytime I get one of these calls is, what's your group consisting of? Because we have a policy involving who gets to use our facilities. Basically it boils down to, they estimate that there are about 50% Tri-Creek residents that are part of their group, and board policy states that it's 75% or greater in order to be able to use our facilities. So I basically told them, no, we're not gonna be able to do that for you. They said, pretty please, and they gave me a list of other schools that they have talked to, and their unavailability of those schools. Hanover's not doing it, Crown Point's under construction, Munster and Maryville are booked. They even went to Crete in Illinois, couldn't get anything from those guys. So yes, pretty please, can you do anything for us? And I said, well, again, it's not my rule, this is the board rule. So if there's anybody who's gonna change those rules, it's the school board. So I'm bringing their request to you in order to defer that 75% Tri-Creek resident rule for the rental of our facility for their purposes of their recital. They said mid to late May, beginning of June.
I do have some concerns about that. First of all, it's a for-profit entity. And, if it were the Hanover schools that, needed that opportunity, I would be 100% for it, but it's a for-profit. I look at a variety of things. I look at our staff here. That's an extra non-school related activity that they're gonna have to clean up, monitor, turn lights off, et cetera, et cetera. Our staff overwhelmed at this point. We have enough staff to accommodate that extracurricular activity that's not a school-related activity. That would be one concern. The other concern is, and I understand Mrs. Pat's is no longer in existence, the dance studio. Okay, so I didn't know that one, but that was one concern.
That's my grandma.
Oh, really? I have some good stories about that. All good. But while I was here, I remember them coming to us and wanting to use our facilities. I would not want to have an outside entity competing with somebody that's in our business, but that's a non-issue right now from what I understand. So those are the concerns that I have.
We do have board policy in place for charging for our facilities and for personnel. So if they did come, they wouldn't be doing it for free.
No, I fully understand that, but I'm just looking at the other variables, the load and stress on the staff that's there. I did think about our business within our community. The other thought too was that, that's there for a reason. The community members paid for this facility and outsiders are using it for their benefit, but are putting wear and tear that's, normal for that facility. How would the taxpayers look at it?
Do you know, you said Hanover said no, do you know why they said no?
They were too small.
Yeah.
And that,
No dressing rooms.
I think the numbers were 250 students or participants in
Something like that.
and Hanover didn't have the accommodations to do that. They were looking at 3 sessions. Why not make 4 sessions or 5? Or split the 250 into 125 for one group and offer 3 sessions for that group and then 3 sessions. I think they could solve it within their community. My own opinion.
I will say, and I appreciate the thought in what the competitors are around in town. One of the things I hear from other community members and in the sports sector specifically is our schools never seem to be open or available. We have a very feeling of a closed door policy. The answer is always no. The board won't let anybody use the schools. I know there are people from our town that use that dance studio. If I were my daughter, she's dancing all over the place, I'm looking into that dance studio. It's the next closest thing. So I, in the spirit of starting to open our doors to the community, starting to show that we are going to use our facilities to enhance our kids' lives. right? I see the benefit of that because there's no competition like you know.
Okay, and that was something that I learned today.
Yeah, and I think that's a great thought, so
Am I correct
I'd like to see
that Indiana Youth Ballet has used our facility in the past?
Yes.
Are they considered 50%?
They have kind of been grandfathered in. They were at the time under your grandma's studio.
Right.
They came in and they, as a Lowell business, were qualified.
Okay.
So they kind of have continued on under kind of a grandfathered agreement.
If I'm not mistaken, and again, I'm going back 10 years, I might have denied that entity for that reason. I'm not 100% sure, but that does ring a bell.
So I think, go ahead.
Oh, I know that we charge, obviously, I mean, I've used the facility for, for purposes as well. Is there a way that, like, we could open it up, but the charge be more for people who don't fit that 50%? That could help alleviate that wear and tear, if you will, on everything that's in there, seating and lighting, and I mean, that stuff's not cheap, if you have to replace it, so.
And half of them are Tri-Creek residents.
Approximately.
They're estimating about.
So that would be 125. That to me is a substantial
Well,
number.
oh, no.
I think that's one talking
Right,
point.
and I don't mind having other people from other towns come in and see our facilities and,
Yeah.
potentially, like, oh, wow, they do have some nice stuff, and potentially bringing more people to our
Then we might
town.
need to adjust our policy then to reflect that,
Right.
because our policy is a guideline.
Right.
So I'm all for it, it's just, I'm adhering to
Right.
what we have in place.
Right, the 75% kind of seems a little high, to me, if half or more of something is that, then it's that, you know what I mean?
Okay, I'm open to it.
So,
I think the other aspects to look at
that
are,
might be something we have to look at that policy.
for the community, because I'm always thinking the school community. You're bringing 250 people here, 125 might be local. You're also, people get hungry, they like to go out to eat afterwards. They go down Commercial Avenue, some kind of specialty shop catches their eye. That can be good for our community.
Absolutely.
And also, if 50% are at that studio, then maybe they would contemplate moving to Lowell or opening a second location in Lowell.
Yeah.
And that's better for our families because they don't have to drive so far. So I think there are things beyond just what's right in front of us of how it could benefit us. And you're right, I personally believe we need to modify that policy
Who's on that
for those.
committee?
Yeah.
But what's before you tonight is it's looking for special permission to deviate from the policy and grant permission for this particular outfit for the spring of 2023.
For this one time.
So that's what's before you.
I would be okay with approving this one-time exception and then want to look into the policy and see about adjusting our policy and the pay structure accordingly.
And probably the sooner the better, because
Yeah.
this is
Can
gonna
I
be.
make a recommendation that we also review this with our attorney first?
Yeah.
I mean, you can approve it pending
Pending attorney approval. Yeah.
I'm just recalling some of the IASBO sessions that I've gone through in facility use with outside entities and inside and modifying policies
And it's
at
all
the
based
whim
on
of
the
the
policy.
board, I just wanna make sure we're not putting ourselves at risk for anything.
That's a good call, I like that.
Okay.
Safety
Yep.
buffer.
Sounds
Okay.
good.
Do you have a motion?
I'll make a motion to go ahead and vary from the policy that we have in place, contingent upon our attorney's approval.
And I will second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Becker.
All right. So we got, are we gonna discuss these?
Yeah.
Okay, and then, all right. All right, number 6, approve the contract of Gibraltar Design for the 95 million bond issue project.
So in the spirit to bring the board all on the same page, our facility assessment that we were contracted with over the course of the last school year was with the architect firms of VPS, Leggett, and CSK. At the conclusion of that facility assessment, knowing what the projects were going forward, the previous board set up interviews with 3 firms. And interviews were held with all 3 firms. So Gibraltar was vetted. They currently are engaged in all of the Hanover construction. They have done a lot of the Crown Point, continue to do Crown Point, the Duneland, Valparaiso. All the references came back, very strong. They only do schools, so they're well-known. They have a great partnership, which we'll get to on item number 7 with Skillman. In speaking with these other school districts, they say they are a solid team. They know the region, they know the contractors, they go to bid. The bids sometimes come back under budget, they reallocate that money, and what these other districts are reporting, they're finding that they're able to then knock through the list of items on the wish list that originally they thought there might not be money, but this duo makes it happen, and they do it with a quality product. So in November, we held the interviews with the firms. Gibraltar was selected. We informed Gibraltar.
Who were the other 2?
Schmidt Associates and VPS, Leggett, and CSK.
They were all very good, but there was a I would say there was a gap. There was the other 2, and then there was a gap, and then Gibraltar. They definitely stood out.
Was Gibraltar the guy that was at the town hall meeting, was he with Gibraltar?
Yes, he was a representative from Gibraltar.
It was Kingery, right? Or
Chris Kingery.
Kingery, he is great.
He
He's
was
the chief
formerly in
educational officer.
And so he was able to kind of understand the needs of education really well, while also being their kind of liaison for all the planning.
So that was a standout with Gibraltar because they had someone who had worked in education, knows education, and that's included in the package. They also, we negotiated a contract at a $670,000 savings from what they initially proposed. And very receptive to that partnership and working together. The other thing that we like about them is they, different from the other firms, are looking at a lump sum and done, whereas other firms will charge the percentage, and as construction costs go up in a year, and then again in 2 years, will so too do the fees with the architecture firm. So this locks us in. We also don't get charged extra for the extra services, such as the programming, such as designing some landscaping and coming to town. It's all a part of their basic service package at the lump sum flat fee and using Skillman. And their partnership, they do a good job of sitting down in the design phase and taking a look, which you're gonna find out next week at the work session of how they do just what you're talking about, Dr. Cleefish, in regards to you bring the bulldozers on one site and get all your work done at a time because it's more cost effective. So can't say enough great things about Gibraltar. They definitely had some services that the other 2 firms did not. They're proven in the area, they're proven in the industry, and they've got a great reputation for delivering.
I've worked with Schmidt and Associates. I've not worked with the other group that you mentioned, and I've not worked with Gibraltar. But I have extensive background with Skillman, and I trust that they'll do a phenomenal job.
They're definitely the go-to around here for.
Absolutely, no regrets on them at all.
Right, and that's what I've heard the whole time I've been on the board is Skillman's definitely the people to go with, and I guess that was the other talking point was Gibraltar's, not that Skillman doesn't work with other people, but Gibraltar's their guys up here. And having those, connections with all the different, construction companies and all.
Seamless.
Yeah, it's, and then once you have that working relationship, bids tend to come in, if somebody you do work with all the time, they come in better. When we first, I don't know, was it like 3 years ago before you were on the board, when we interviewed Schmidt was very good when we were, seeing who we were gonna use for the, assessment. They were probably the best ones, hands down, out of that group when we did that. But honestly, probably out of those three, they didn't seem like they were as well.
Things change.
Yeah, but,
Okay. I'm looking forward to next week.
yeah.
So, is there a motion to table this until the January 26th
I'll
meeting?
make a motion to table this item. These are two items,
The sixth,
Stillman, which is related.
Yep.
Although I have the utmost confidence in it.
Do you want
I'd
us
still
to-
like to hear more.
do you want us to speak to, in regards to Skillman, now, or?
I'm comfortable
okay.
with Stillman, it's up to the rest of the group.
I don't have any questions about Stillman, I've seen them all over the place.
Yeah, you can't trip without falling on one of theirs.
20-something
And
years.
hearing, you know, I know your experience is deep in that, so that adds my confidence as well.
Skillman used to-
Skillman's got their name in
Yes.
And they used to work for Tri Creek, and then in the interim, we've had some other construction management, and it feels good to be back with Skillman. There's a degree of confidence and trust, yeah.
So Nate, you'd like to make a motion, to table
Both
numbers,
items.
both
6 and
items?
7.
Yes.
Okay. I will second tabling both
All right,
items.
I have a motion and a second to table items 6 and 7 under business operations. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. We will table both of those. All right, moving on. Consent items. Are these all donations?
Yep, I think you're good too.
All right, I'm gonna read them all, and then we'll vote on one.
Sounds good.
Number 1, accept a donation from an anonymous donor in the form of Aldi and Strax gift cards valued at $1,000 to be given to the Three Creeks Elementary School families in need. Number 2, accept the donations from Dustin and Lisa Blink of Crown Point, Indiana, in the amount of $100 to be used to offset negative student meal charges at Three Creeks Elementary School. Number 3, accept a donation from Kim Lopez of Lowell, Indiana, in the amount of $50 to be used to offset the negative student meal charges. Number 4, accept a donation from Mike Anderson Chevrolet of Maryville, Indiana, in the amount of $1,500 to help support the Lowell High School Red Devils racing account. Number 5, accept a donation from the Lowell Chamber of Commerce in the amount of $100 to help support the Lowell High School choir program. Number 6, accept a donation from the Lake Prairie Elementary School PTO in the amount of $178.26 to help support the second grade study trip. Number 7, accept a donation from the Lake Prairie Elementary School PTO in the amount of $255.75 to help support the fifth grade study trip. Number 8, accept a donation from Oak Hill School PTO in the amount of $450 to help support the fourth grade study trip.
I'll make a motion to accept all of these, and I think it's wonderful that the generosity of our school community and beyond is there. I mean,
Oh, yeah. I love seeing the report at the end of the year of all the donations. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. The dollar amount, it ends up being the generosity that comes to the school.
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. All right, I don't have anyone signed up for the public comment related to non-related agenda items. And other information, the board finance meeting, immediate following adjourning of meeting. All right. So we're gonna have a finance meeting as soon as we
After.
adjourn this meeting.
we're gonna
Okay.
adjourn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We go to the restroom. isn't it?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, they're closed.
Stand up and walk for a second.
Number 2, the Indiana School Board Association new board member training academy is scheduled for Saturday, January 14th, for all board members and superintendents. So that'll be Saturday. We're gonna get to see all kinds of each other.
Yeah.
Burgundy shirts
Burgundy. Got it.
and black jackets.
Cardinal.
Cardinal.
What's the temperature supposed to be? That ain't a very thick
Is
jacket.
Cardinal black?
You can wear something over that.
All right.
Our colors?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're gonna wear cardinal
Cardinal,
red.
yeah.
Cardinal.
No, it's not red. It's cardinal.
It's burgundy cardinal.
Whatever.
Whatever you're saying.
Guidance, Chris.
The non.
Board workshop facility planning is scheduled for Thursday, January 19th at 6:30 PM at the Lowell Middle School cafeteria,
Media center.
media center.
We'll give you a tour. You'll know where the cafeteria is.
Perfect. See, I had no idea where I'm going. The next meeting of the Troy Creek School Board will be January 26th at 7 PM.
Perfect.
All right.
All right.
Gavel.
Anything?
Gavel.
Meeting adjourned.